guys, welcome to my channel. My name is ReadingBear and I hope you are ready for some more stories. And today, we'll take a look at some new entitled people content. If you enjoyed my content, please don't forget to subscribe to my channel and post some bear emojis in the comment. And now, let's dive right into the stories.
The first story is titled, HOA neighbor steals my private dumpster, homeowner association ends up fining me. TLDR. I live next to an HOA neighbor from hell. She fines people for the smallest things while breaking the biggest rules and getting away with it because of her position. She runs a hair salon out of her living room, which is against the HOA rules, and doesn't get in trouble. I rent a portable dumpster and then leave it to go work a double shift. I come back to see it is full and smells of chemicals. I get fined by the HOA for it and look at my cameras. I see that she is the one that did it and I show the video to the entire HOA. She gets kicked out and shunned from the entire neighborhood until she moves. I hope she learned her lesson and in her next home she doesn't start pulling the same kind of stunts that she did here. I think a lot of people can relate to having a bad neighbor but never really being able to catch them or get them in trouble for the stunts they pull. For me, it was mainly because I lived next to an HOA board member that seemed to not think any of the rules applied to her. She didn't break any kinds of laws, only HOA rules. Yet she would go around and fine everybody for the smallest thing while getting away with it even when she was reported. Trying to get back at this horrible person seemed almost impossible until one event. The thing that bugged me the most about her was that she flaunted the fact she would break an HOA rule. They had it in the bylaws that nobody could operate a business out of their home. There were more fine print things like working from home was fine, but they basically didn't want you having customers coming to your house and taking up all the street parking. My neighbor was a hairdresser who constantly had clients parking on the street. Still nothing could be done, and she wasn't going to get a fine because she was part of the HOA. Going back to me for a minute, I ended up renting one of those portable dumpsters that you can just hitch onto the back of your car to move it. We had to clean out the basement after a small flooding incident as well as some other odds and ends. Deciding it was best to just do it all at once, so we didn't need to spend money renting the dumpster twice. The morning we got it was the start of a little bit of a weird day since I had to go and work a double shift. This meant I left the house at about 4 p.m. and didn't get back home until 6 a.m. I was so tired I wanted to just crawl right into bed and sleep. Instead, I noticed that the dumpster was basically full. This didn't make any sense since it should have still been empty, so I took a look inside of it. There was old moldy furniture in it that I knew didn't belong to my house. There was also some kind of chemical smell that made me back off right away because I was worried I would get sick from it. I wanted to figure out what was going on, but anybody that has worked a double shift knows there comes a point where your body isn't going to let you stay awake any longer. I fell asleep hard until about 2 p.m. and remembered the trash. I went outside again only to find a notice taped to my front door. It was from the HOA, and they were fining me $200 for having a dumpster full of probable hazardous waste that smelled on my property. I was more confused than I had ever been and wanted to find out exactly where all of this crap had come from. I had video cameras luckily, and while they couldn't catch what happened off of my property, they got enough. When I was gone, the HOA neighbor had hitched the dumpster onto her car and drove it off of my property, and I can only assume onto hers. Then fast forwarding until the middle of the night when everybody else would be sleeping, she drove it back onto my property and put it in the same spot. In a world without consequence, I would have walked over and slapped her across the face. I knew very well she was behind fining me for this too. I can only guess the chemicals were stuff used on hair and probably were meant to be disposed of in a proper way. I wasn't going to take this sitting down though, and instead planned to go to the next HOA meeting and fight the fine. I also was forced in the meantime to pay to return the full dumpster and get stuck paying for an extra dump, but I had a plan for that too. At the HOA meeting I told them that I wanted to argue the fine that I received because it was unjust. Of course, neighbor started talking right away about how she lived right next to me, and she saw and could smell the horrible stuff that I put in the dumpster. She even pulled out a photo of the dumpster from after she put it back for evidence. I don't know how you can smell hazardous materials through a photo, but whatever. I told them that I had my own evidence and pulled out the video from my security camera. As the recording played, you could see the face of my neighbor go from a smug smile to a very nervous red face. She was finally caught in front of so many people that she had no way to get out of it. Even the other members of the HOA looked horrified at what she had done. To preserve the HOA and to save themselves from a lawsuit, she was kicked out of the HOA, and soon the entire town knew what she had done. I went up to her privately and handed her the bill from dumping the extra trash. I told her that she could pay me and be done with it, or I could take her to court and also charge her for trespassing, theft, and dumping without a permit. She obviously wrote me a check to try and get herself out of any further trouble. The entire neighborhood despised her after that and started to fully shun her. Also, without her HOA protection, she was no longer allowed to keep her hair salon business out of her living room. Nobody wanted to talk to her, and whispers about her were always going around about how they couldn't believe somebody would do that to their neighbor. It was too much for her, and by the end of that year I noticed a for sale sign on her property. I don't want to say that I am glad my actions caused her to be shunned out of the neighborhood. I will say that I was glad she got what she deserved after constantly thinking that she was better than everybody else. The rules apply to everybody in a community, even the ones that have so-called power. If she had just acted like a responsible HOA member and citizen, then there would have never been any problems. Outside of the HOA stuff, this woman didn't really have anything else going on against her. She just abused her power to get things how she wanted, and it finally came back and bit her in the ass. I know that this can go one of two ways, where she goes to a new neighborhood and starts up the same old game she was playing. Or she could learn from this and get a fresh start to be a better person. I know that the first option is more likely, but as much as I hated her, I hope she picks the second. I also hope that if she chooses to be an HOA neighbor from hell, her newest victim will be able to act a lot faster than I did to put her in her place. The next story is titled, HOA vs. Volunteer Fire Department. I am a member of a volunteer fire department. I'm currently the president on the admin side, and one of the captains, fire operations. Myself and two other firefighters live in a very large HOA that has public roads as well as a large pond or lake with a common area. As a captain, fire department line officer, when it's my week to be duty chief, as in responding directly to the scene from my home, I have the fire department owned command truck. It's a Chevy Crew Cab 2500 pickup with body that has doors on it, red with lights, sirens and fire company markings. The HOA president says I can't have it in my driveway, and that if I continue they are going to fine and tow the vehicle. He said it's a nuisance when I go to calls with lights and siren. I only use the siren on the main road in the HOA that is 2-lane, with more traffic. I do not use the siren on my section, low traffic, resident traffic, of the HOA. I told him they can't do that since it was a fire department use truck and I'm on call 24/7 for the week I'm assigned. There is nothing in the HOA documents about emergency government vehicles, but only commercial ones. As the president of the fire department, I wrote a certified letter and attached the county ordinance as well our fire company SOPs for chief line officers when on duty chief status. He also has problems when we use the lake for testing the pumps on the trucks or for training that he also wants to address. He thinks we shouldn't be allowed to use it. But in our county ordinance, we have the right to any body of water for fire department operations. Plus, it has a county-installed dry hydrants on the lake as well per the fire code. Should we have the county council involved if he doesn't back off? Update. This morning got email from HOA president wanting to discuss. I sent him. We agreed to meet for coffee, plus the fire chief and vice president of the fire department came along. HOA president mentioned he understood what we sent him. Seemed like he is fine with the lake use. They pretty much don't have a say in infrastructure by the county. For the parking, he wants to think about it more and bring it up to the next meeting in January. Chief told him we would need something in writing from the HOA to be allowed or not be allowed to park. I warned him if the document mentioned I can't park till the meeting, the fire department will send a copy to the county commissioners and DA for their official review. For the responding of lights and siren in the HOA, we provide him the law. He said he's going to contact the management company that precedes everything. We told him if they have any questions contact the DA or the county EMA director, but they have to copy our department on the correspondence. So, we'll see. I'm getting a beer in the fridge ready if the DA gets involved, because I'm sure he would have our back. Especially when he comes to most of our fundraisers and worked with him on fire investigations with arson over the years. The next story is titled, Male Karen threatened a delivery driver for standing in allegedly the wrong place at the counter of a massive yellow fast food chain. Hi, I'm Alex. First time posting here. I hope you enjoy my short retelling of real events that took place yesterday, as I'm writing this. I work in a food delivery service. Every workday I arrive at the central hub to grab an electric bicycle, go to the bathroom, and get on my shift. I was about 2/3 of the way through this one when the incident happened. I was in a yellow massive fast food chain restaurant, waiting at the left side of the counter. The place was massively overcrowded. I could swear there were at least 100 people in the building. Along with me were 2 other delivery drivers, working for other companies. At one point, a person from the crowd pushes through and starts confronting one of the delivery drivers standing to the right of me near the counter. Karen told the delivery driver that he should be on the left, where I was already sharing space with one more delivery driver. When the delivery driver pointed out there was no space, and so did the person behind the counter, he got more agitated and raised his tone. At first, I went to separate the two. I kept saying, "Chill out," and "Calm down," while moving my arm between the two, facing the aggressor Karen. The Karen got so agitated, he began yelling profanities, such as, "fucking." I finally fronted him physically, and told him, "You're not going to get your order faster acting like this." This got him to finally turn his attention away from the other delivery driver and onto me. I finished by loudly stating, "So chill the fuck out." At this point I could tell in my peripheral vision that other people in the restaurant began looking at the situation. The loud noise from their conversation has quieted. In fact, it got awfully quiet for a busy restaurant after I yelled that. For a moment, we just kept glaring at each other. Finally, I backed off. The Karen collects himself and makes something up about me being a delivery driver and him being a customer, so he's automatically correct. I said, "You talk like you're my boss," pointing out the fact that, no, he was not my boss. He didn't get to boss me. Afterward, the crowd of women behind the Karen spoke up and told him to calm down, and that finally convinced him to calm. I got the order eventually and left with no further incident. I could hear laughter from the crowd and I couldn't help but smirk. Thinking back, there isn't a single thing I'd like to do different. Except maybe not yell, "fuck," so much back when saying, "chill the fuck out." Or maybe not even use "fuck" at all in that instance. Oh well, it worked. The last story is titled, "Mother got arrested for DUI, she's never touched drugs or alcohol." Hey all, my mom got arrested tonight for DUI. She initially was pulled over for being on her device, which was fair. She admitted to changing the song on her Pandora station. He then said that her eyes looked suspicious, she has a lazy eye, and asked her to step out of the vehicle and that she needed to perform a sobriety test. She blew a 0.0. But he said she failed because she failed to walk in a straight line, she was sweating, and seemed nervous. Okay. My mom is 53 years old and is going through menopause. She suffers from hot flashes constantly. The officer called my dad and said to come get her because he would release her to his custody. When my dad got there, he asked if the officer would call his sergeant down. Well, apparently, he didn't like this as he then cuffed my mom, put her in his cruiser, and took her to jail. They did a blood test at the jail, and it won't come back for 4 to 8 weeks. I am looking for any legal advice regarding this situation as none of our family have ever dealt with anything like this before. Update as of the 9th of August 22. Preliminary trial postponed to the 23rd. My dad called the sergeant for highway patrol and he actually emailed my dad a copy of the form to report a complaint against the officer and highly encouraged my dad to do so. Blood test done by county will hopefully be back before pretrial. I also found out my dad actually recorded the encounter as soon as he showed up. Additional info included the officer saying that my mom's mouth was dry and that it was evidence she was on drugs. My dad asked him several questions including, was she swerving? No. Did she change lanes or turn without a signal? No. Was she driving erratically? No, but she was holding her phone. My personal favorite. Dad asks, my mouth is dry too, does that make me drunk? Officer replies, I haven't tested you, yet. Also included a text from my dad, I had my phone on record the whole time. I said, when this is all over, and XX is innocent, will you apologize? He protested that she was guilty, so I cut him off. When this is all over and if she is innocent, will you apologize? He said yes, I will apologize. Update. Hey everyone, I made a post a little over 3 months ago asking for advice here. Quick recap with some new info. My 53-year-old mother got pulled over for being on her device. Officer had her get out and perform a sobriety test, which he did not have her do on dash cam footage. Still don't know if any body cam footage is available. She blew a 0.0, but failed her field test because she can't walk in a straight line, was sweating, couldn't focus her eyes, and seemed nervous. Officer called my dad and was going to release my mom to his custody until my dad demanded his sergeant. He then said, no, and arrested my mom and drove her to jail and booked her for DUI and texting and driving. Mom gave blood and urine for testing, which then proceeded to sit in the officer's car for over 48 hours until it got to the lab. No amount for bail was set because she's never been in trouble with the law before. Dad picked her up a few hours later. DMV trial came first. Officer told them my mom was a pill-popping drug abuser and was a menace to society because she had microgram traces of Adderall in her system. My mom has diagnosed ADHD and is prescribed this medication by her doctor. She had not taken this medication in over 48 hours, hence the microgram traces of it. DMV took away her license. Happy to say her court date finally came and went. All charges dropped. Her trial consisted of the prosecution stating the highway patrol had not given them any evidence for the case, and therefore all charges were dismissed, including the texting and driving. My dad filed a complaint against the department for the officer lying on his report. My dad filmed the whole ordeal and has evidence of the officer's inconsistencies. Nothing came of the complaint. My mom still had to pay hundreds of dollars to the DMV to get her license back, which had been revoked, even though she was found not guilty, and all charges were dropped. My parents are trying to work to get a law implemented to help others in the future who may be in the same situation. My mom found a lawyer that has dealt with similar cases and is thinking about taking hers. He has prosecuted a certain highway patrol officer several years ago for violating DUI procedure, which resulted in hundreds of cases being overturned. She had an interview with a local news station about the case, not sure when it will air. My mom wants justice for herself, any people before her that this has happened to, and she wants to prevent this from happening again. She cries often and gets very angry at herself. She tried to balance on a yoga half ball and fell off, and began to cry violently because she was so mad at herself for not having good balance. And saying, maybe if I could just have better balance, maybe if I didn't have a lazy eye, maybe this wouldn't have happened to me. My mom doesn't have a Reddit, but if she ever sees this, I love you mama and I'm proud of you. Thank you for listening.